Okay, so today we're going to be looking at how to create a game on our Microbit. And so the game, I'll demonstrate it to you now. Literally, you are a car and you're trying to avoid other cars from hitting you. And so you can see here, I'm going to push the reset button at the back of my Microbit. There, and I'm a car at the bottom. And as I click the B button, I move to the right. And as I click the A button, I move to the left. And the cars are the red lights coming down from the top. And I get a point each time I move my car and don't crash into these other cars. And I can, at the moment, just move left and right, and it's along the bottom of the Microbit. And there is the option also of speeding up the lights as time goes by, but for now we're keeping it simple, and it's just us at the bottom row moving left and right to avoid the red lights coming down from the top. And you can see as one of them crashes in me, this one over here crashed me, all the LEDs come on, and then across the screen comes the message game over. And then ultimately your score. You can see there's the word score, and it gives you a value for what your score is. 39. And so I avoided the other cars 39 times, and that keeps repeating until I push the reset button at the back of my Microbit. Let's turn it around, the black circle here, and then you start all over again. And so the idea is how to do this for your Microbit, but then also how to do program in a game controller. So let's get started with the first task of just creating this game for your Microbit so that everyone can play it with their A and B buttons. Okay, so the game itself comes from this website, 101computing.net, Microbit Car Racing. You can see here the title, and they take step by step through how to do it. So I'm going to take you through it, and with a few tweaks that I've added, not too many. So yeah, let's get started on the microbit.org webpage. Okay, you've started a new project. And with your forever block, if you don't have it, you go to basic here and you take forever. I think they also call it an event. We're going to put several things inside of it just at the start of our game, just to set certain things up. And you can see our first three things are three variables that we have created. Instead of starting from scratch, I'm actually just going to walk you through the code I created and where I got the different things from, because it's just quite a long code, so it's quite difficult to start from scratch and remember everything that I'm supposed to do. So you create three different variables, and how you'll do that is you'll click on this variable menu here. There probably won't be anything in here, so you'll have to click on make variable, and you would type in the name of the first one. And so the first one, let's look here, is score. So you're going to click here, variables, make variable, type in score, and click OK. And as soon as you do that, several different options will come up. And I want you to go the one that says set score to 0. You can see if I scroll down here, it's this one here, but it's now just got a different name. So it says set whatever the variable name is to 0. Click it and drag it, or just click on it once and it'll appear on the screen, and drag it under the forever one here. And so, if you've got other variables in place, you would just click on this down arrow and go to the one that you want, and I want the one that's called score. Okay, and I want you to do that 2 more times. The next time I want you to call the variable player car, and the last variable game on. So literally 2 more times, click on variable, and then drag the box that says set variable to 0, drag it into here. And so we're literally just creating these variables. I've likened them to boxes that you can put things in. I'm not sure if it's this case here, but I know in other programming languages I've used before, it kind of also helps set aside memory for these tasks, and it makes it a bit faster later. I don't know if that's the case here. So we're creating a thing called score. Pretty obvious what that's going to be. At the moment we leave it equal to 0, because obviously you want your score to start from 0 at the start of each game. The next one is player car. So this is your car in the game, and we're going to, instead of setting it to 0, we actually want to give it a location on the LED board over here. And so you can see this block here is green, and so it comes from, sorry, clicking on the wrong thing, it comes from down here under advanced, and scroll down and click on games. And we want this create sprite at. So click on games, and it's the first one here. Click on create sprite at 22. Click it and drag it here and put it into this circle over here. It should turn yellow when it's fitting. Let me just show you. So I put it on the screen, and when you put it here, when it's moved to the right place, it will turn yellow, and it'll automatically pop it in there. but okay, you can see it's done it for me. Let's put my old one back. Sorry to confuse you. So now a sprite, it seems to be the terminology for microbits. Maybe it's a coding thing in general. It's just your little lit up car here. And we want it to be at x of 2 and at a y of 4. In x of 2, you can see here these LEDs on the screen start at 0. So 0, 1, 2 will be this middle column. And y of 4, 0 is up at the top, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's this bottom row, middle LED, and that is what's going to light up as your car. And then the next variable you're going to create here, you're going to create game on. And it's literally just saying whether when your game is starting or ending, that's going to be that variable, and we set it to, at the moment, it's true, which means your game is on. If it was set to false, it would mean the game is over. And so this is something called logic, and in mathematics, and it's about true and false, so it's quite intuitive. And you can see here in your menu, if you go down to the logic menu, there's if statements, which we'll work with just now, and at the bottom here is this true and false. You're going to click on true and drag it here. So we're creating a variable initially and setting it to true, so the game is on. Next thing I need you to put in here is a loop. And so that's this green one here. You're going to click on down here on while and drag it onto the screen. And then within this while, you can see when you first click on it, over here, it's got a true statement already. You need something more. You need this blue block with an equals in the middle. And let's just check. I think it's under logic. And you scroll down to the bottom, and here's this equals block, and you click and drag it and put it inside, and you can see, but then we still have to do something more. We still have to put this variable game on. Over here, you would click game on variable, scroll down, click on game on, and put it here, and we still have to add here in a logic statement, scroll down, take true, and put it over here. And so you can see that's how I created this string over here. I'm going to delete it so you don't get confused. And while at the last bit here, so while a certain situation is in play, I want you to do something. And that do is to pause, and we'll discuss it now. How you add in the pause, you go to basic, scroll down, click on pause here, and pause 100. And so it's saying while game is equal to, game on is equal to true, so while the game is playing, you must always pause 100 milliseconds at the start. Next thing I want you to do is add in 2 blocks that come from the games menu. So you can see here, if you scroll down under advanced, click on games, I want you to drag onto the screen this change score, and then I also want you to drag onto the screen this game over. And change your score by, and so that you're taking out of the variables here. Okay, so the next step is to set up what happens when you push button A and button B. And I've got them on the side here. You can see, let's just discuss it. When you push button A, look at this dark block here. When you push button A, the player's car, so your sprite over here that you've created, let's just drag back here. You can remember player car is the sprite we created at X2 and Y4. So when you push button A, the sprite at that location must change in the X direction, so from left to right, by -1. So it's going to go 1 block to the left. When you push button B, the player's car is going to change in the X direction, so left and right, by 1. So it's going to move to the right-hand side. So your sprite only stays in this bottom row. It doesn't go up and down, it just moves left and right. We've put in an if statement though, because what happens if your sprite is here at 0 and you're pushing -1, like give you an error, it's not a real situation, it can't go left anymore. So we have to put this if statement in play, and I'll discuss it now. Equally so, if you're pushing button B over here and it's moving to the right hand side, but your sprite is at 0.4, it can't go any more right, and so you're going to get an error. So that's why we need to put this statement in here. And this first one here, it says if the player's car, so your little sprite, your little red light, is at a position greater than 0, so it's anywhere to the right hand side of 0 here, then you can move it to the left.
So obviously you can't move it to the left when it's at 0. So anything bigger than 0, if it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, you can move it -1 to the left. And similarly here, if player's car is in any position other than this bottom right hand corner, so it's in position 3, 2, 1 or 0, then you can move it to the right by 1. But if it's in position 4 here, you can't move it to the right. There's no more space around it, and it would give you an error. So you need to define these two situations, that only if those two conditions are satisfied can you move player's car left and right. So remember, when it's on a push button A, the sprite has to be anywhere else here except at 0, and then it'll -1 from it and move it to the left by 1 step. If you want to push button B, it's got to be any other block here besides 4, and then when you push B, it will add 1 onto it. But if you push B when it's at 4, it's not going to move anywhere, and if you push A when it's at 0, it's not going to move anywhere. Okay, so the next step now is to program the other cars that your car needs to avoid. So you can see here, here's your sprite or your car at the bottom. These are the other cars falling down, and when they collide, it says game over. So we need to program those 5 cars at the top and how they're going to move down. And so how we do that, we're actually going to have 5 separate forever events or blocks here, and in them we're going to program what's going to happen to each little sprite along the top. And we're just going to change, we're literally going to copy and paste the first one and paste it 4 times and make small changes along the way. So let's talk through the first one, and then we can do the changes. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to pause for 100 milliseconds, and then we're going to put in this if loop. And we say that if your game on variable is equal to true, now remember that means if your game is happening, it's not game over, then we want to create a new variable, and that's called car0. Set car0 to, and this is create sprite at x0, y0. Now we've used this before when we, if we scroll up here, it was when we created our own car. We did this create sprite at x2, y4, and remember that was this bottom middle LED. And so now this sprite over here, you're creating at 0, 0, which is this top left sprite. And then this pause function again, and you're going to pick a random number between 0 and 5,000. And the reason why we do this is we don't want every single car here to move down at exactly the same speed, otherwise it would be quite difficult to dodge them because they would all be hitting the bottom at the same time, so you couldn't avoid them. So we want a random length pause, so each of these little cars at the top are going to start at a different time, so the computer or the program will determine the length. And then we're putting in this while loop, and you can see it's the last thing we put in here, but it's quite a long one. So while your game variable is equal to true, so while the game is going, if your car0 has a y of 4. Now remember, x is going left to right, y is going up to down, so it's your column. So if your car0 has a y of 4, and that means if it hits this bottom left hand corner, so it's gone all the way from the top down to the bottom to place number 4, if when it reaches this point here, it touches your car, if car0 touches the player's car, then game over. And you can see how this is written here. You can see if car0 has a y of 4, so it hits the bottom left hand corner. If when that happens, if the variable player car is touching car0, so say at that instant your light is in the bottom left hand corner as this little car0 or sprite comes down, if they hit each other here, then this game on variable changes to false, and that false means it's game over. Else, what is the other option? The other option is that if they're not touching each other, then it means you can score a point because you managed to dodge that car. And so that's why we say here set score. Score is the variable you created. And you want to set it to, instead of being equal to score, you want it to be equal to score plus 1, because you're adding a point on. So each time you're adding a point when you dodge one of these cars and you move from left to right. At that point as well, it's not game over because you didn't collide with it. So you've got to move that car 0 back up to the top again, to y is equal to 0. So up to the top left-hand LED. And again, then you're going to pause for a random number between 1 to 5,000, and then the game will start up again. So it's a bit complicated, but it's really quite simple what you said here in this while loop. While the game is going, if car 0 gets all the way down to the bottom, and at that bottom point there, it touches the player's car, then the game is false or it's game over. Otherwise, if it's not touching the player's car, you score a point. So your score changes to score +1 because you managed to dodge it. You set the location of the car, so you move car 0 back up to y of 0 in the top left-hand screen. And again, you pause for a random number before the car starts moving again. And so you can see here, there's an if loop inside of an if loop. And that's okay, you can have as many as you want. And so this if is if they touch, game over, else you score a point. This larger if loop here you can see is that if car 0 is at the bottom left-hand corner here, then you assess whether you've collided or not. Otherwise, it means your car isn't in the bottom left-hand corner. It means it's busy on its move down the column to the bottom left-hand corner, and that's why you said here car 0, change y by 1, and pause again between each time that you move down. So later on you could come along here and add in this pick random just down here, and that would mean that the car doesn't move down at a regular speed, it moves down at a changing speed, which makes it even more complicated. You could actually try to figure out how to make this speed increase as the score increases, and that will get even more difficult. But for now, this is your code block or your event that is helping you create car 0 and assess whether car 0 has collided with your car, the player car, and what to do then. And so how did we get all these blocks? So the forever block, you can have multiple forever blocks. You can see up here I've got another forever block, so don't worry about that. So to add one in, you would just go to basic and click on forever. This next, the pause, is also under basic. You can see it down here. This if loop is under, is it logic here? And you can see here, the first one is if, then. The next one is if, then, and else. So it gives you options to put in an else statement. But you can see here, if I drag this if here, if I click on this plus button, it automatically adds an else. Obviously, you're going to have to use the shorter one up here because it's just an if statement. There's no else involved. Okay? For this block over here, this block with the equals, well, let me show you an example. So logic, let's bring it in here. Okay, you can see we need a block here that's got an equal sign. So what we do is we again go to logic, scroll down and take this equal sign here, drag it inside where it says true. And now you need to put the game on variable first. So you go into variables, click on game on and drag. And then you have to add a true statement. So you go back to logic, scroll down and click on true and put it in the circle. And then the set car 2, remember you can only get the set 2 if you create the variable. So you go here, you say make variable and you call it car 0. You can see I've done it already. And then you can see down here is the set variable 2. You would drag this and just click on the down arrow if the right variable is not listed and click on car 0. And 2, we're not saying 0, we're just adding this create sprite at. And that, if you scroll down here and click on advanced, it's under this game menu. And it's this first one, create sprite at. There you are, and drag it into that circle. And the big thing to keep track of here is that this sprite is at x of 0, y of 0. So you need to physically change that. You can see on the right hand side here are the duplicates. Okay, then you're going to add in another pause. Remember, pause is under basic. But here we're going to put this pick random. I think that's under maths. Let's see. Yeah, down here, pick random, and drag it in there. But again, if you weren't sure, you would just go up here to search and you would say pick random, and it automatically comes up at the top there. Then we're going to add in this while loop. And so you can see you would click here on loops and you would go down here to while. And sorry, I really should be doing this exactly as is, so let me just drag this forever loop there and add in a pause just so that you're not getting confused. Okay, so this while loop is the longest one. So again, we're going to add in this equal sign. So you go, here to logic, click on equals and drag it in place of this true. And now we want to put it in variable game on. So you go back here, variable game on is equal to, again we need the true. So let's go logic, down to true, over there. And now you can see I've got two if loops within this while loop. So we go back to logic here. Let's click on the second one and put it in there. And you can actually just do it again since we're busy doing it. And drag it inside of each other. You can see I'm just doing it in the top here. So the first one, we have to add in if car naught, the y of car naught is equal to 4, then do something. So we have to add in this equals first, and how you do that is you go logic and you drag that into the true, the first true block. And now we have to add this car naught y. This y is a dark green, it comes from the game function. And so you can see here, I'm going to use this option here. It says sprite X, and I'll show you now how we change it. Click and drag it into the circle. And so red is always your variable, and now it's called sprite, but let's change it to car naught. And let's change it to y. Okay, and is equal to 4. Remember, it's when it gets to the bottom. Sorry. Then, and now we're going to add in here this touching block, and again it's dark green, so it's under games, and you go down here to sprite touching blank question mark and you drag it in there. And again it's a variable, so you're going to change it to player car touching, and you're going to have to drag in the variable here car naught. So you go drag in car naught. Then what must happen? Set game to false. And this red is variable, so you click on variable, you go down here on it, set, and drag it, and we're going to click on the down arrow and go to game on, variable, to and false, we go to logic, scroll down, false, drag it in there, else, let's just line them up. Else we're going to set score to score plus 1. And again, go to variable. You're using the set to block. Oh, sorry, drag it down there. And we're changing the variable to score. And we're adding in a maths block here that has a plus. So go here, click on the first one and drag it in. And something plus something, our something is going to be score, so you're going to click back on variable, click and drag on score, plus 1, because we're increasing our score because we didn't collide with anything. Again, this green block here, set the y of the car to 0, we were moving it back to the top of the screen. You would go here to your game menu, and you would go down here to the sprite set x to 0, drag it in there, and change it to car naught, your variable to car naught, and your x change it to y, because remember we want to bring it to the top of the screen again, so it's the top of the column. And then we want to put in a pause, so scroll down to pause, and we're doing a random pause. We're adding in this random purple block, so you go here to maths and pick random down here, put it in and change the value 10 to 5,000. And then we've finished that if block. You can see the outline in yellow. So now we're doing the larger if block. So we're going to put in this green block, which is from the game menu. And you scroll down here, you can see this change variable. Oh, I didn't put it in properly. And change sprite to car naught, and change x to y. and put one last thing in is your pause by 500. Okay, and so that's how you would have created this block that I did on the left. So these two are exactly the same. I just kept it there to help myself remember what must come next. And now, so I'm going to just delete it because it's a duplicate. Now you're going to click on this forever block here and right click duplicate, and you can see it shows up on the screen. And we're going to do exactly the same thing for the next sprite or car 1 along here. So it's the next one along, so it's at, let's think about it, it's not at 0, 0, it's at 0, 1. So let's go along here, you can leave pause, this is also, you are going to have to create a new variable here called car1. So you're going to go to variables, make variable, and type in car1. I've got it already. I'm going to click on the down arrow, choose car1. Okay, so we want to change the location of car1. So car 0 is this top left hand corner, which is 0, 0. This next block along, this is y of 0, but an x of 1. So let's change that to x of 1. Let's keep scrolling down. Pause stays the same, game on stays the same. Change car 0 to car 1. Y of 4 stays the same. Player car stays the same. Change car 0 to car 1. Keep going. Game on stays the same. Score stays the same. Change car 0 to car 1. Pick random again. Change car 0 to car 1. There should be 5 instances where you change car 0 to car 1. And all the y values stay the same. It's just this x value at the top that is different. And so you're going to copy and paste this 3 more times, and each time create a new variable. So you're going to create car 2, car 3, and car 4. And each time you're going to add on a 1 here. So it'll be at x2y0, x3y0, and x4y0. So do that, and I will show you because I've done it already. Here's car 0 at 0, 0. Here's car 1 at 1, 0. Here's car 2 at 2, 0. And here's car 3 at 3, 0, and car 4 at 4, 0. Okay, and that's the end of your code. Now you are able to download this. Okay, so let's call it something. So mine is called Game Car Microbit Controller, because just I save it always into a folder on my desktop. I've done it a few times, so I'm going to add a number onto it. And then plug in your Microbit to your computer. As you do it, your Microbit file window will pop open, and I will open my Microbit folder here. And you find your most recent hex file. You can see that's here, and I drag and drop into my Microbit. And once it's copied across, you are ready to play the game on your Microbit. Okay, so then the next part of this video, we're actually going to look at how to use your joystick to play this game instead of having to push the A and B button on your Microbit. And you can see this joystick here, and here's the joystick itself, here's colored buttons. Your Microbit plugs in at the top, and here's a battery. There's also a plug point at the bottom. You can also power it using the USB to your Microbit. And so I'll show you a video at the end of what it looks like. But just walking through the steps of how to check that the different buttons on your joystick are working. And so this website here from waveshare.com, Joystick for Microbit, walks you through a basic program on just checking out your Microbit. And it also guides you as what menu to load to get the right code blocks. And so you can see further down the page here they give a GitHub address, and that's what we're going to use. I'm going to copy it to get the menu. So I go back to microbit.org. I've created a new project. I go down advanced, I scroll down, I click on extensions, and in the search bar here I paste this address and I click on search, and this WS Joystick comes up. Just to warn you, don't search for WS Joystick. Well, I did and it didn't show up anything. You had to put in this GitHub address. When you click on it, it'll load the menu. I'm going to take you to a program I've already written just to show you just to show you a basic program you can write just to make sure that all of your buttons and joysticks are working. And so you can see down here this WS Joystick. This is the menu, and we're going to use this first block here, Joystick Initialize. Click on it and drag it onto your screen, and you're going to put it in this on start block, and it just initializes the joystick on start. I haven't been able to find more information than that. And then another option they suggest is to play music when it starts up. So again, you would go WS Joystick and use this play music and click and drag it in here. It just literally beeps when you start up. It helps you know that your joystick is working, that all is well. Microbit is also working. You can choose different notes here. If you click on this middle C, you can actually choose what note on the piano you want to play. You can also choose how many beats you want it to play for. If you want to get more exciting, you could go to music here and actually choose different melodies. I'm going to keep it simple for now. Then I'm going to, on the screen, display the different letters of the different buttons so that I know that they're working. And okay, so you can see here how your microbit will look. Your joystick is considered to be P when you click it in. E is this white one, D red button, C green, and F blue. And so you can see here, I've gone to this WS joystick. I've taken this key, P press block, and I've dragged it onto the screen, and I've pasted it 5 times. And in the pull down menu, I've changed the different options. So I've clicked on P, D, F, C, and E, and I've then gone to basic. I've gone to show LEDs. I've dragged this and dragged it inside the block here. You can see I've done it twice now. I'm just going to delete it. And when you click on the screen, it changes it from dark blue to white, and that is the letter that will be displayed on screen. It's very annoying. I'm going to drag this out so it stops beeping at me. Okay, so these are the different buttons. Just to point out, there are 2 other buttons. There is A and there's B, these small buttons on top. I'm not using them, so I'm not going to program them in at the moment. Then in my forever loop, I'm going to create an if statement in order to be able to understand whether my joystick itself is working. So put in a forever loop. You can drag yours down from the top or take a new one from this basic menu. And the if statement is going to be under logic. If I drag this if and else statement down here, if you want an else if to show, you just click on this plus button here and it creates an else if as well. And if I want to take this else away, I click minus and I'm left with just this else if. So I would drag in this else and this if else block, and then this first one here you can see it says u, and where I got this from is this WS joystick. You can see down here it's DIR, I'm assuming it stands for direction, and you can see when you drag it first on it says none, but if you click on this down arrow, this is literally U is up, D down, L left, R right, upper left, upper right, down left, down right, and you can choose which one you want to deal with. So I'm first going to choose the U, so up, and I want to, when I push my joystick in the up direction, next thing here I want to show an image of a north arrow so that I know my up on my joystick is working. And where I got this show image, I go down here and I click on images and I go here, show image, and I drag onto my screen. Here I would have put it there, and then my image, it's a variable. I don't want to do a variable, I want to show arrow image north. And again, I got that here from images, arrow image north, click and drag it inside the red block and it disappears. At offset 0, you can just leave it at that. It's going to leave it in the middle of the screen. And so this is how I did it. So let's delete that. So all it means is every time I click my up direction on my joystick, I want to show the north arrow. Show image, and what image is that? It's an arrow image showing a north arrow at offset 0, so in the middle. And so under else if, I'm going to do it again. You can even just go here and go right click duplicate. If it doesn't work, then you go back to WS joystick and you click and drag again and put it in there. And again you click a down arrow, and now we're going to go down. And you can click on this purple block, right click duplicate, drag it in here. I want to show the image, but I want to, instead of a north arrow, we're looking at the down direction, so I want to show a south arrow. Okay, and so you can just go through and do all of that. The next one is L for left, so I want to show a west arrow, it's pointing to the left. R, I want to show an east arrow. Okay, the next one here, UL, up left or upper left would be a northwest arrow, upper right would be a northeast arrow, down left would be a southwest arrow, down right would be a southeast arrow. And if you're left again with an else at the bottom, you just click the minus arrow next, or the minus button next to it, and it deletes it, and you're left with this else if. And that's your program to test if your buttons on your joystick are working. So you can download it. I called mine Game Controller, and download it to your computer, and then drag it across to your Microbit, and plug in your Microbit to your computer and load it on there, and then we can see if it works. Okay, so you plug in your Microbit, it should beep at you, and then let's put these colored buttons on the right hand side. If I push the red one, a D shows up on the screen, white and E, blue and F, green is C. And then remember when we said if we push in our joystick we get a P, but if we push the joystick to the right we get an arrow up, an arrow to the right, an arrow up. If I push it to the left, an arrow to the left, down, an arrow down. And then it's quite difficult, but if you get it to the top right, you get a top right arrow, top left, bottom left, diagonal arrow, and a diagonal arrow down. So that's just to check that the different aspects of your joystick are working. Okay, and then this is the final code to get your car racing game working on your Microbit with your joystick. Literally just reuse the program we created for our Microbit when we were pushing the A and B buttons, because we're doing exactly the same, except now we're going to be using the buttons on the joystick, and you can see here we're going to use button F instead of button A, and button D instead of button B. And the only problem is you can't use this input on button A. You have to go down to WS joystick and rather use this blue block. Click and drag to the screen, and you, like we did earlier, you could change the number, and you're going to change it to D and F. And so remember, D is like B, and it's moving forward by 1, and F is like the A button, it's going backwards by -1. And then everything else is absolutely the same. I have added in a smiley face over here on start, but otherwise everything is exactly the same. Save it as a different name and load it onto Microbit and see how it works. Okay, so when you plug in your Microbit, you can see the smiley face, and then the cars start to move down. As I push the blue arrow, I move to the left, and as I push the red arrow, I move to the right, and you can see I collided with one of the cars, so it's game over. So across the screen it says game over, and then I'll get a score after that. It's just a pause. I'm guessing my score won't be that high. 7. And if you want to restart, you just push the restart button at the back of the Microbit over here, and then the game starts all over again. So have fun playing with your game.